The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Wednesday, January the 7th, 2026, and we're live here at CHD TV. So the show today, in a moment, Mary Holland and Rick Jaffe are going to be talking about why Children's Health Defense are suing the Department of Defense. There's been a bit of confusion about that, and they're going to put that straight for you in just a moment. And then I will be on with Cece Doucette, and this is really, really important segment that we're going to be doing about the critical danger of wireless tech. So we're really not going to be candy coating this because there is so much that people do not understand about it. But first up, here's Mary Holland. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Polly. Delighted to be here. And I am delighted to bring on attorney Rick Jaffe, who has just filed a lawsuit on behalf of Children's Health Defense against Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of the Department of Defense. Rick, welcome.
Welcome. Well, thank you very much for having me.
So, Rick, you filed in mid-December a case against the Department of Defense on behalf of CHD and specifically its military chapter. Tell us about the case. Why did we bring this? Tell us the basic elements, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I think it all started around COVID. What happened is the military started obligating the servicemen to take the COVID shot. And there's a whole history of this. I mean, there was anthrax issues way back when and all, but everything was pretty quiet until COVID. So once the military started requiring service people to take the shot, there were individuals in the military who had a religious objection to the shot. So a lot of them filed lawsuits, sought injunctions and whatnot, and some of them got pretty far, right? So there were some actual positive results for that in preliminary rulings. But then what happened at some point, the military stopped requiring it because the pandemic ended. And then what happened was a lot of these cases were then declared as moot. There was never any formal final decisions in most of these cases. So that left kind of a gap in the law. So, so what happens now is that there's still requirements for the flu shot and I guess, well, mostly the flu shot, but some other shots. And religious service people are still filing religious exemptions. And one thing that came up during all these COVID litigations cases was that the military would pretty much deny almost all of the requests for religious exemptions. But of course, they gave out medical exemptions sparingly, but they gave them out a lot more. So that's part of the story. The way, and I wasn't involved in any of this stuff, and this is not really what I was doing. But then the story is it's just how it happened. An acquaintance of mine called me up, and the problem she was having is her son, who was not vaccinated because she lives in one of the 46 states that has a religious exemption, wanted to join the military as an officer in the Marines, and they wanted him to get fully vaccinated, and he hadn't been vaccinated at all. So they went around to some of the big vaccine exemption firms, and they're all told the same thing, that there's no religious exemption for people who want to join in. So she asked me if I could do anything about it or I'd look into it, and that's really how I got involved in this, and I looked into it. And then what happened was I couldn't really tell what the policy was. Now, I'm a lawyer, I can research things and all, and I literally couldn't tell what the policy was. The military has, the Marines send out this letter to officer candidates to tell them what to do, like if they bring $300 and all kinds of stuff, shirts and all. They have to tell you, they tell you basically what to do when you show up. And one of the things they tell people is you got to show up vaccinated, right? And what they say is, if you're not fully vaccinated, and what we're going to do is we're going to take you right over to the next tent, and then we're just going to give you all your vaccines. But then what they say is, if you need more than 5 vaccines, we can only give you 5 vaccines. And if you need more than that, we're going to disqualify you as militarily ineligible. So it made it sound like vaccination was like a requirement for service, just like having 2 arms and 2 legs are. But in the same document, they talked about religious accommodations, but it was more about, I don't know, like if you can't drive on the Sabbath or you don't eat pork or something. And so I literally couldn't figure out what the policy was. So, but I knew that at least if you're in the service, there's the theoretical possibility of getting a religious exemption. And that triggered in me a case that we did, and that would be not the royal we, that would be Mary Holland, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and me, where we filed against the University of California back in 2020, because they had just announced that they're requiring all personnel to get the flu shot on the theory that they wanted to keep the hospital wards open. So even though this was way before the COVID shot, they were literally obligating everyone to get the flu shot. And Kennedy called me up and says, can we sue? And I looked at it and said, sure, we can sue, and we'll see what happens. So what happened was we ended up technically losing the lawsuit. But the best argument we had was that under federal statutes, professors and staff had a statutory right to a religious exemption. So therefore, the UC policy granted those 2 categories of people in the university a right to seek a religious accommodation. But because in California, there is no religious exemption for K through 12, the original policy was that the accommodation available to staff and professors was not available to students. So any constitutional lawyer worth his salt is going to realize, hey, that's an equal protection violation. So that was really the principal claim in the case. So we did that, and we thought that was a winner before the court, but we got kind of hoisted by our own petard by our success. It was such a good argument that what the UC did is the day before they had to answer, they changed the policy and granted all students the same right of accommodation that they granted to everyone else. And then the next day, they argued, hey, we changed the policy, therefore you don't have your constitutional argument. So the point is, and then we pushed through, they begged us to submit as many accommodations for students.
Right.
They said they'd all be granted. So the point is, we pushed through hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands or thousands of students with there. And the point is, so we have the same argument. That's what spurred me to think we have the same argument here.
So we won in the end in UC, allowing people to have religious exemptions. So here, I think you've described this, Rick, as the students, right? The professors and staff had that right, but the students didn't because they were younger and there was no religious exemption. There continues to be no religious exemption in schools in California. Right. So here you've talked about sort of a 2-pronged strategy. One related to people coming in, right? Where the policy is completely ambiguous. And then secondarily, to end the sort of sham process for people in the military. And I would just point out that people in the military not only are still subject to a flu mandate, which has now just been made to be sort of optional for children, interestingly, by the new recommendations that came out yesterday. But people in the military also have very strict regulations around hepatitis B. Some of them are still getting anthrax vaccines. They have a very high burden of vaccination because they are in very difficult circumstances routinely. So what are we hoping to come out of this, Rick? What's your best hope for how Secretary of Defense Hegseth is going to act in response to this filing? And this is in federal court in the District of Columbia, correct?
Correct. Oh, by the way, I should point out, thank you very much, Mary and Bobby. You ended up paying for that lawsuit in California. And we, like I say, we pushed through many people.
Which is fantastic. I mean, that and now that's serving as a precedent. And as you're pointing out, it's an equal protection issue. You can't deny to people entering the military the rights that you grant, even if marginally, to people in the military. That doesn't make sense, right, Rick, as a policy issue.
Right, that's exactly right. So what do we hope to get out of it? Well, the context has now changed dramatically, I think, because of two things. And this is what we are taking advantage of. First of all, I guess because Kennedy is in, they have a completely different, outlook towards and view towards religious exemptions. Witness what they've done in West Virginia and Wisconsin, how they're trying to hold states to allow religious exemptions. So what is certainly the case is you have a different view now on the need for religious exemptions, which the administration, which is now administration policy. So I think that's the first thing. And then something happened, I guess, last month or so that has never really happened before, is the Supreme Court sort of acknowledged that there is a constitutional right for religious exemption based on this Miller case and the Mahmoud case a couple months earlier. It was just a grant vacate. It was a GVR. The Supreme Court didn't really write an opinion. It just said follow the previous.
What is GVR, Rick?
Oh, it's when you file a cert petition and is granted, then it is the prior decision is vacated and then is remanded for further consideration in light of a prior precedent.
Right. So the Supreme Court sort of sent this case, Miller v. McDonald, back to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals related to an Amish school case around religious exemptions, correct?
Right. And so the big picture is that it looks like now the Supreme Court has recognized a religious exemption. There has to be further litigation, but it looks like that's the case. And so the point is this: we have the Supreme Court and we have the federal government now taking a position which is completely different from a practical point of view from the military. So the military is not in alignment with the administration at this point, and it's not in alignment with the Supreme Court. So what we hope is this litigation will point this out and force the military to come in alignment with these new circumstances, and they're very recent. So I think it would be an easy case in a way.
So optimally, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but optimally, we would hope that Secretary Hegseth says, oh my gosh, they're right. We're just going to create clear rules for people coming into the military for religious exemptions, and we're going to make sure we don't have a sham process going forward. If he were to make a statement like that and to put in place new rules, would that be satisfying, or would we continue with the litigation? What do you think?
Depends on what they say, but I think as a matter of good faith, like with the UC case, like I say, we've been there and done that.
Right.
I think the practical result could and should be that all of these pending cases are going to get granted, just like what happened at the UC. And I think that's really the only measure in effect, because we already know they've had sham processes. So we're not looking for more sham.
No.
So, the rubber's got to meet the road, and there has to be some practicality. And I think that is, I'm hoping and expecting that that's what's going to happen.
So you mentioned equal protection, which is a constitutional right, but I believe that the case is also about the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Could you explain that a little bit?
Well, there's a statute that theoretically grants people the right to express their religion. And, the operative effect of what the military is doing, I think the Navy denied 100% of applicants, and the Army denied 98.5. So it's well and good that you have a statutory right, but if the actual process is such that it's never effectuated, it doesn't translate into decisions that allow people to practice their religion, then the statute is meaningless. I mean, they're just not enforcing the statute fairly. So sure, there's an administrative, there's an APA claim, an Administrative Procedure Act claim. And we have an argument that we've made in similar lawsuits, which is that they've never tested the vaccine schedule for safety. So we have a claim about that, and that would be the principal claim in the Thomas case. So
Right.
there are different theories, and in a way, the theories are less important than the fact that the administration has a new policy and the Supreme Court says we have a right. So you can call it anything you want for any reason you want. The bottom line is that these exemptions have to be reviewed seriously. And there's people who argue, like this guy, the Reverend Aaron Lewis, says that the government doesn't even have a right to do an analysis of a person's personal beliefs.
Right.
Right.
And he's a reverend. So, but this is still couched in the context of free exercise of religion. Is that right, Rick? Like someone's asking in the chat, what about philosophical exemptions? What about if I just say scientifically, I don't want aluminum injected into my body. I happen to have read the science showing that it causes neuroinflammation. Is that good enough?
I would say no, because and that's the difference. I think there's a subtle and perhaps non-existent difference between a philosophical exemption and a religious exemption, because most people are not Amish and they're not Christian Scientists. And most people take drugs for different diseases. So, you can talk about fetal stem cells, but I think in law, there is a fairly hard distinction between a personal belief and a religious exemption, even though, it's like, I guess it when you see it, but that's a big issue. But I think the simple answer is, if you go in and say that I've read the science and I don't believe vaccines are safe, your religious exemption will be denied.
Right.
Is operatively the way I think it, that's not a valid reason. And then you get to then you get to more subtler things. Suppose you go in and you say, well, my body's my temple, and I don't want to put, impure substances in it. Is that a religion? It's hard to say. I mean, who am I to say?
Right.
But
I think, and I think one of the issues that has created this kind of sham process, not just in the military during COVID, but certainly also in New York City, where we've been fighting, and New York State, where we've been fighting, is this sort of denominational prejudice, denominational discrimination, where they say, Christian Scientists, oh, yes, you can get a religious exemption, or I don't know, if you're Amish, you can get an exemption. Right. But if you're Catholic, the Pope says it's okay to get a vaccine, so you don't get a religious exemption. How do you look at that, Rick?
Well, I cite this Reverend Aaron Lewis again, and I think it's pretty clear that religion, not just being affiliated with a faith that has a position, is not disqualifying. I think that people say it is, but I think many people have gotten religious exemptions, even though they're Jewish or Catholic or Muslim. So I think operatively, I mean, there's a whole cadre of attorneys out there that get people religious exemptions, and they're not Amish and they're not Christian Scientists. So, it's really what the field is telling us, that people of major faiths are getting religious exemption. So that would be the practical answer I would give.
Right. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the constitutional answer is your religion is what you hold sacred. It really isn't your denomination. Your religion is your inner faith and the way in which you worship God. And I think that's been come out during COVID and very important. And I want to give a shout out to our military chapter, because these were people in the military and some who have had to leave the military. But for the most part, these were people who were really persecuted during COVID, and their religious exemptions were not accepted, and some of them literally suffered torture. And as Polly can speak more to, we're doing a film about what happened in the military during COVID, and it's not anything that we want to see happen again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, you don't have to be a member of a denomination. I mean, I think that's pretty clear constitutionally.
Right. Anything else you want to tell us, Rick?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I just have to believe, because of the change of policy and because of the Supreme Court, my hope and expectation is not to have to file any more paperwork on this case. I think, we did this because it's really clear. And look, we could have never done this a year ago, right? It's just, the stars are lining up. It's not only Kennedy being in there, but having this Miller case that came out of the blue. So sometimes the only thing I did is I think I said, wow, look at these two things. Now is the time.
Right.
So, my hope is not to have to duke it out, for the next 5 years on this case. This is not a hard case. We know what the administration policy is. We know what HHS is doing in West Virginia to make sure that the states enforce religious accommodations. So we know that. So it's just everything's lined up.
Right.
And we'll have to see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Rick, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Polly, over to you.
Thanks, Mary. Well, wow, a very important case there from Children's Health Defence. Okay, everybody, I'm going to paint the scene of why I am bringing on Cece Doucette this morning. So on Christmas Day, I had to do an emergency flight to the UK because my brother had a serious stroke. So I got on a plane on Christmas Day and it was full of children, actually. And what really shocked me was that these children, bar a few, were all sitting there with their little white earbuds in, and I couldn't believe it. I then landed in the UK and my driver was wearing the little white earbuds. I then went to the stroke hospital, and this was on the floor of the stroke hospital was people with serious head injuries and brain injuries, and they don't have televisions in the UK on the National Health Service in the hospitals, and they're sitting there with either these wireless headphones on that just connect above their head. I've never seen those before, or the little white things in there, and it shocked me. And when I brought this up to the medical staff or the family members, everybody was just like, what are you even talking about? Absolutely not. This is completely fine. They wouldn't sell them it really shocked me. These people didn't have a clue. Then I come back to Austin, go to my natural grocers, which is where all the crunchy, super organic food is. And there was this man, sort of young 30-ish man with his children. Children have got the white AirPod things in, or whatever you call these things. And he's putting all this organic food into his shopping cart, and he's wearing, and I'm just like, we have to get Cece on. We are totally not getting this across to the people. So I actually am pledging that CHD TV, we are really going to smash this year. People are going to understand the dangers. So Cece Doucette, thank you for being here this morning, and thank you for coming at such short notice to explain to the people why, please explain to them why these things are so dangerous.
Thank you, Polly. It's my honor to be here with you, and my heart goes out to you and your family, and we pray for your brother's healing. But yeah, you are spot on. These earpods have become a status symbol, especially among children. And we've just been Pied Pipered into thinking, hey, newer, better, shiny object, let's get it, and life will be grand. But that is so far from the truth. What these earpods are two-way radio frequency microwave transmitters that we are now putting right up to our brains. And before the show began today, Rick was commenting that back in the 1990s, he, as a healthcare litigator, represented organizations that were dealing with people that were getting glioblastoma brain tumors from the cell towers. So it's a really bad idea to put anything radiating right up to your ear. And, that was back in the 90s. And when we fast forward to today, we have literally thousands of peer-reviewed studies all over the world showing that this man-made radiation far exceeds what the Earth's natural radiation levels are. So, for example, if you go outside and you stand on the grass or you hold on to the higher water content of a plant, you're going to get pulsated with beautiful healing electrons from the Earth 7.83 times a second. That's called Schumann's resonance. 7.83 times, just under 8 seconds, we get this beautiful healing energy that helps to regulate all of our biological circuitry, because our cells pulsate with information back and forth all day and night. So think about 8 times a second, we need this healing energy. When we got so fancy with digital technology, we started making man-made signals that are pulsating in the megahertz range. Mega means 1 million, 1 million times per second. We're getting jackhammered with microwaves. In the gigahertz range, now that they're pushing us toward 5G, 6G, that's giga meaning 1 billion times per second. We get pulsated with microwaves. So what happens when you put one of these things right up into your brain? In the scientific literature, they want us to be at a measurement of 10 microwatts per square meter. Basically, within 3 feet of air, how much radiation is there? The goal is to get to 10 or less. I have with me the Safe and Sound Pro 2 radio frequency radiation meter that was recommended at the medical conference for this field. Electromagnetic fields, or EMFs, or electromagnetic radiation, or wireless radiation, EMR, whatever you want to call it. It's man-made radiation. But this meter has been adopted by doctors to take into their practice to measure. We have a doctor here in Massachusetts who loans it to her patients and says, you've got 2 hours, go home and do your scavenger hunt and come back and tell me what you found. So we want to be in the green on this meter. I'm going to turn it on. And in my home, I've taken control of all of the wireless, and I bounce right around green here, right? I'm going to show you what happens when I open up this ear pod thing. We are flying into the screaming red here. Flashing red is as bad as it gets. So in my home, I'm usually like 2 or 3 microwatts. Just by opening up this case, we are now at, and it's still climbing, 152,000 microwatts. 152,000 microwatts. And we want to be at 10 or less. And then if I take them out of the case, as if we were gonna, I don't even know how to get these things out. I don't use them at all. We just topped off my meter just by putting this little earbud. Sorry, I know these camera things get goofy, but just by putting this little earbud right up to the meter, just like we would put it right up to the brain, in the case, it was just shy of 200,000. This single earbud topped off my meter at 3,180,000 microwatts. 3 million, and we want to be under 10. Not 10,000, 10. And so now we have a whole generation putting these ear pods up to their brains. Some of them are probably falling asleep with them at night when their bodies need to be doing cell repair and regeneration. So I know it's a mind blower because we've all adopted wireless technology. But now it's time to step back and say, okay, well, for man-made radiation, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has a 3-pronged rule. 1, spend as little amount of time as you can radiating yourself. 2, create as much distance from something that's radiating. And 3, if you can't get away from it, shield yourself. And we recommend that you work with a building biologist or another professional who's trained on how to do the shielding, because there's some caveats there. But yeah, Polly, I share your angst in looking around you and seeing all of these exposures, and people have no idea.
They have no idea, and they become quite aggressive as well if you try to educate them. That's why I really wanted to get you on so we could get a clip of this to hopefully go viral and show these people. But there was one man, he had one of those in, and his child, his son, could not have been more than 5 years old, had the other one in, and they were laughing away at whatever they were doing. I really wanted to say something to them, but I didn't have enough experience
Yeah.
that's why I got you on. But can you explain to the people, this is, I think, what I think these parents need to understand, what is could potentially happen to your child if you put those white earbuds in? What the danger
Yes.
that you're putting them in?
So scientifically, we have something called the blood-brain barrier. It's a membrane that surrounds our brain and is, everyday cell repair happens. You've got debris, toxins that get escorted out of the body through the blood, right? When you open up the blood-brain barrier, which the science shows microwave radio frequency radiation does, you are now creating an opportunity for all those toxins to go into the brain, into areas where they were never meant to go. And so when we look at the scientific literature, we see that this causes anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, insomnia, anger is a big one. When we went into lockdown for the pandemic, we issued every child a wireless tablet to go home with and access their education with not one shred of safety testing or one shred of technology safety use information. So here we sent the kids home largely for 2 years with a wireless device. And in many homes, they had unfettered access because mom and dad and grandma and everybody was working so hard to try and keep it together and keep their income going. The kids had a lot more access to wireless technology than we have had in the past. And then here in the Boston market, the week that the kids came back to school, having been home with all that wireless radiation exposure, I saw on 3 different newscasts in 3 different schools in the Boston area that these kids were losing their minds. They were literally getting into fights at school and wailing on their classmates with the tablet. And I went to my yoga class and I was chatting with a woman there, and it turns out she was a counselor in the neighboring school district. She says, "Oh, yeah, one of my colleagues is out on disability right now because one of the boys beat the tar out of her with his tablet." So it's not if this is happening, folks. We have to stop radiating our children. And so once we understand that, we are halfway there, right? Once we understand that, we're like, okay, geez, let's go scream into a pillow and get that out of our body, just like the birds and the bees all shake. Dogs will shake when they're stressed. Go scream into a pillow. You've earned that right. Get it out of your body. Then come back and say, okay, what can we do? So let's get to as low as reasonably achievable and honor that CDC principle, the ALARA principle. So how do we do it? For those earbuds, and again, folks, take heart. Everything we've broken, we know how to fix. If you have to use a transmitting device, like a phone, create as much distance as you can and try not to put radiation right up to your head. There's something called a hollow tube or an air tube headset. And see, it has no metal up here at the tips. So we're showing you one from our colleague, Our Blanket Shields Your Body. No metal up toward the head because metal attracts radiation. So you don't want metal anywhere near a radiating device. And then these have little ferrite beads that break the radiation. And this is just a hollow tube, kind of like a doctor's stethoscope. You're going to get great acoustics. You break the radiation here. You've got, your muting and your volume control and everything here. And then you've got a big long cord so that you can put your cell phone or your tablet as far away from you as possible because distance is your friend. So look for an air tube or a hollow tube headset. And Valentine's Day's coming up. Maybe you show your love in a new way this year, right? This meter that was recommended at the EMF medical conference was from a company called Safe Living Technologies. This is a $400 device, and I became the first in the United States to put a radio frequency radiation meter on loan in my public library. Now that all of our libraries have a library of things collection, because people don't necessarily come to the library for books anymore, it's not a big ask for you to go and say, hey, some of our libraries have air quality meters. Some of them have, games and, puzzles and all these other things. How about if we get a radio frequency detection meter and put that on loan in our library? So libraries have budget for these sorts of things, and then you can share it among your community. Or some people just are fortunate to have the funding and buy it outright. Others will pool their pennies together and share it with their neighborhood or their family and friends. So it's critically important to measure these radiation devices, because the Internet of Things, the industry is forecasting that we're all going to have 200 wirelessly connected devices in our homes, 200 devices pulsating us from every direction with microwave radiation. And folks, we are not built to withstand that. Our immune system is calibrated to get us through everyday cell repair and wear and tear. We're a
Cece,
pretty, yeah.
I just want to ask you a quick question about what's the science on cancer, brain cancer, with these earbuds? Do we have
Thank
any
you.
on that?
Yeah. So back in 2011, when the World Health Organization started looking at this issue, they basically said it doesn't matter where it comes from. This man-made radio frequency radiation back then was classified as a group 2B possible human carcinogen. What was missing at the time were the animal studies, and we have now completed those. Our own government, the U.S. National Toxicology Program, which for many years was highly regarded as the gold standard on toxics research in our country and throughout the world, they completed a $30 million study on cell phones asking the question, could these cause cancer? And what they determined is clear evidence of cancerous tumors and DNA damage. And the industry will get a hold of a good study like that and go, oh, that's just one study. You need more than one study. And that buys them time to continue to proffer their toxic products. So think big tobacco on steroids here. Well, right on the heels of our National Toxicology Program study, the Ramazzini Institute in Italy completed another multi-million-dollar study on the other end of it, the cell towers. Ours was on the device, theirs was on the towers. And they too determined clear evidence of DNA damage and cancerous tumors, among other findings. So we don't need more science. We know scientifically what this is doing. What we need is to bring a comfort level to people to learn about this, because when you turn on your TV or you listen to your radio or you're out on social media, start making a mental note. Whose ads am I hearing? Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, all of these big players in the most lucrative industries in the world today. That's whose messaging gets through to us, because these mainstream networks can't afford to go up against these industries, because that's where their revenue stream comes from. So we're so very grateful to CHD TV, to the Environmental Working Group has put out some excellent fact sheets on this, the Environmental Health Trust, Environmental Health Sciences. The science is all out there, folks. We just have to be a little more proactive in looking for it. If you just want a crash course, I have been so privileged to work with Dr. Mikko Ahonen out of Finland. And Dr. Ahonen and I have put together an online course that can be completed in about 1 hour. So literally, we could train your schools, we could train your family, we could train your municipality, we can train your workforce, literally on your lunch hour today, on what the science is telling us of the risks and then how to mitigate. It's not rocket science. On the back of your router, You have Ethernet ports. All you need to do is get your Ethernet cables back. You may even have jacks in your wall still. Just get back into the habit of plugging devices in when you're not on the go. You can get little adapters to plug into the Ethernet cable because most of the computers and stuff have gotten so small on their ports. But easy fix, $20 you can buy a little lightning adapter or the Thunderbolt for the tablets and just hook it up to your Ethernet cables. So most of us have more than one device in our homes, so get a little Ethernet switch. It's like an extension box for electronics. And then you have your own connection right to the Ethernet. So you're not competing like you do with wireless, because wireless technology is very poor quality. As soon as you send a signal, it buckshots out through the air and starts to degrade. You whip it through a cable, you have far faster service. It's more reliable and it's much safer. And for those who care about our world, it's a lot greener too. Wireless systems consume 10 times more energy than using a hardwired connection. So we know what to do. But we need to find the courage, and especially as parents and grandparents and caregivers of children, to say, wait, what? This is radiating us? Literally, this is radiating us.
Now,
so let's not do that anymore.
Quite right. So I think let's do a message to the people, to the parents out there that know not what they do by putting these little white earbuds into your children's ears. You are potentially giving them cancer through this. You are potentially, they can and do cause cancer. They can and do cause behavioral problems with extreme violence attached to it. Did you know that? It's not worth it. And I cannot tell you, Cece, again, how many people in America and England have got these in their children's ears. It's horrifying.
I know. It's become a status symbol and it's so convenient. So that's the big word, is convenience. We've traded our health, our security, our safety, our privacy for convenience, but we were never given the balance of information. So let's learn together what this is. I do a free public education webinar every month. On a good month, I remember to post it on the calendar at at Children's Health Defense on their community page. But just come learn. We'll hold your hand. We'll teach you what you need to do. We'll answer your questions. Take the course at saferscreentime.org. And I was on a call yesterday with Americans for Responsible Technology, and we are now all partnering with this amazing group out of Europe. There's a gentleman named Diego in Spain who's a published author, and he's done a lot in the environmental space. But they are starting off February, just like some people observe dry January or parched March to get away from alcohol for a month. Off February encourages us all to take social media off of our mobile devices. Let's start getting our lives back. We all sort of know something's wrong. This is our opportunity to get back and engaged with real life. Do things with your friends, do things with your loved ones. Some people are organizing walks. We can't do that here in the Northeast, but in California or Hawaii or Texas, you could organize a walk and just start bringing attention to this and re-empowering ourselves. Use technology for the benefits. Go to your hardwired computer and do what you need to do. But when you're on the go, I keep my cell phone in airplane mode as a rule. I turn on airplane mode, I turn off Bluetooth, I turn off Wi-Fi, and I only turn it back on, and only the one antenna I need for the shortest amount of time. So again, we'll teach you what to do, but please, folks, create a sleep sanctuary at night. No man-made radiation. Let your body cell repair. We need to teach.
This is amazing information. Thank you. We have a lot of questions about hearing aids and the rings, I think, Aura rings or something, someone was saying, and the watches. So here's what I propose. Send your questions in to us at CHD TV. We will send them on to Cece. Cece, if you can come on again potentially next week and answer some of these questions.
Sure.
CHD.TV/contact. And we'll get your ones from the chat as well. And if we get Cece on again next week, we will literally go through your questions and answer them all. But yeah, I can see a lot of you asking about the hearing aids as well. So But for now, we are out of time. We are going to go to our story of the day. But Cece, thank you for everything you do. And if we can see you next week to answer these questions, I'd be very grateful.
I'll be back. Thank you for the opportunity, Polly. Have a tech-safe day, guys.
Yes, thank you, Cece. She's amazing. All right, everyone, we're going to go to our story of the day. We will, as I say, collect your questions from the chat and get Cece back on, but write in with more if you want, and we'll send them on to her and she can answer them for you. I'll be on with Financial Rebellion tomorrow morning. See you then. Okay, we are live. This is a hard story to tell. Was look at these beautiful boys that you're all seeing in front of you now. They are 3 years old.
Almost 3.
Almost 3 years old, and they're called.
This is Charles, and this is Ralph.
And you are.
I'm Ashley.
Derek.
You're the parents.
Yes.
Okay, and you have 2 older children. We'll talk about that later. Let's talk about these 2 boys now. So when you were pregnant with the boys, did you? Because you vaccinated your older children, so.
Yeah.
Did you take shots when you were pregnant?
I took the flu shot when I was pregnant with the twins. Yes. Thankfully, that was the only one. Took the Tdap and the flu shot with my first son. But was told because I had it, I didn't need it again. So, flu shot was the only one. So thankful that I didn't get the COVID shot because I was pregnant with them right when it was rolling out. And because they're twins, we had to see a fraternal fetal medicine specialist, and he tried to push it, and I declined. And I'm not sure that they would be here today if I would have gotten that.
So how were they born? Did you have a normal birth?
Yep. So I had a repeat C-section. They were scheduled. They induced me at 37 weeks. Probably would have kept on cooking if we wouldn't have interrupted them, but because they were mono-di twins, meaning that they had 1 placenta but 2 sacs, so it's considered high risk. So I was monitored very closely, but the pregnancy was perfect. You know, they sit you down the first appointment that you have at the fetal medicine specialist, and they tell you everything that could go wrong, and nothing went wrong. They were born both 6 pounds at 37 weeks, latched right away, breastfed, and
Healthy?
they were healthy.
Declared healthy?
Declared healthy, perfect APGAR scores. Nothing was the matter.
2 beautiful, healthy boys
Yeah.
at birth.
At birth.
Both latching. It's really important
Yes.
because we don't have very long before they get the Hep B, correct?
Right. They got their first dose at 4 p.m. Against our wishes.
So talk about that because you tell them.
Yeah, so, you know, when medical issues started arising, we did start pulling their medical records. At the time of birth, we signed a form to decline the hepatitis B. Somebody once told me that being born was traumatic enough, so why put them through shots? And wasn't against it at the time, but that stuck with me, and we thought we were protecting them. Turns out they gave them a shot against our wishes anyways, and not only did they give them a shot, but they gave them the wrong dose.
They gave you the adult dose.
Adolescent dose.
Adolescence dose.
So they, at 4 p.m. the day that they were born, per our medical records, they were given the shot, even though, and it clearly says parents declined in our records within like probably the same clicks. So it was ordered in the pharmacy, and of course we didn't know. We didn't know that they were given that. So we left the hospital thinking they hadn't been vaccinated. We were going to get their first set of vaccines at their first well baby visit, which they did. They got their first set of vaccines at their first well baby visit, but ironically, the day that they went in for their first well baby visit, their body temperature was so dangerously low, probably from their first shot, that we had no idea that they got, and they were reacting. They gave them the shot that day. Again, we had no idea that they did it. So when we took them to the pediatrician's office, 3 days after they were born, 3 or 4 days after they were born, I think it was 96 hours later, they were struggling to maintain their body temperature. So the pediatrician just kind of brushed it off, said, it's probably because the building is cold, we didn't have them dressed right, so we couldn't leave the pediatrician's office until we raised their body temperature. So just through bundling them up, we raised it, and then they vaccinated them. And we went home, and a couple days later, they just started getting really constipated. And we have 2 older kids, so it's not like we don't know what kids are like. We know that we knew something wasn't right. So back and forth with the pediatrician, just saying, something's just going on. I don't know what it is. They're constipated. They're having issues with their bowels. Weird stuff was coming out. Sending her pictures, just kept brushing it off. So then we went and they got vaccinated again.
With?
The hepatitis B.
Again.
And by this point, this was their 4th, but we didn't
Can you just tell me how you got to the stage where they got back? Why did they get vaccinated again?
Because we didn't know yet. We hadn't woken up.
Is that normal to have that many Hep Bs?
No. So you get the one at birth, and then you get the 2-month shot. So they gave the one at the hospital on accident.
Yeah, we didn't know it until later.
We didn't know that.
Yeah.
So then they got the one at birth was given at the pediatrician's office, and then they were given their 2-month, the 2nd dose.
Plus the other shots that you get at 2 months.
Well, no. So that came later for whatever reason, because I don't know. They didn't get those at the 2-month shot. They got the hepatitis B because we were trying to kind of catch them up because we didn't do it at the hospital. So they got their 2nd dose, and then 22 days later, Ralph starts having seizures.
Ralph. Is Ralph older?
No, Charlie. They were actually born in the same minute, so they're only seconds apart.
Okay.
But Charles is the older one. Yes, I know, buddy.
You're the old. We acknowledge that you are the oldest. It's very important with twins.
The older, wiser one, right?
Yeah.
So Ralph starts having seizures, and they're very mild. He's only 8 weeks old at this point, and took him to the emergency room. They did all the blood work, the EEG, everything came back clear. His EEG didn't show any seizures. And so we went home thinking that, they might grow out of it. That's what the doctors kept saying. Oh, this is, babies do weird things. They weren't really saying that it was seizures. They were just saying that, we'll keep an eye on things. And so when Charlie started having seizures 33 days later after his 2nd shot, which was really the 4th shot, he started having seizures, and then that's when the doctors were like, oh, well, maybe it's genetic. So then we were told in the hospital when Charlie was there that they did a genetic screening, they did a metabolic panel, they really started to look a little deeper, or so we thought, and we were sent home on Keppra as a precaution.
What's that?
It's an anti-seizure medicine, and they said, still at this point they were saying, well, it could be acid reflux, that their reflux was so bad that they were contorting their bodies, that it was looking like seizures. And so for 2 months, our pediatrician at the time said, I think this is called Sandifer syndrome, which is just a horrible GERD, where the acid just is burning their esophagus, and they're just so uncomfortable and so miserable, because at this point, they're crying constantly. They're the most miserable babies. Our 2 weren't like this. Our 2 older weren't like this. All they did was cry. And now they're having seizures on top of it. I'm trying to figure out, is it something I'm eating? So I was trying to change my diet, breastfeeding. And then finally they convinced me to try formula because maybe it was food allergies. And so, we were trying the medicine, we were trying the formula, and it was just making everything worse. They just kept getting worse and worse. And we went to a neurologist, and he was kind of saying the same thing, like, we're not really sure what this is. This doesn't really look like seizures. I was sending him videos on his personal cell phone for probably 2 months saying, what is this? This is not normal. And we got them vaccinated again.
For what?
The DTaP, the Hib, the polio.
And how old are they at this stage? 4 months?
4 months? Yeah.
So the 4 month schedule.
Yep. So they're 4 months,
And they haven't had a COVID shot?
No.
It wasn't in then, yeah.
Not
Thank
to our
God.
knowledge. It wasn't in any of their medical records. So we got them vaccinated again, and that night, Ralph starts having infantile spasms. Nothing has been the same since. Their vision, their eyes would cross in and out. They would flutter up and down. We've been able to restore some of their vision just through diet and changing our lifestyle, but they still don't make eye contact. They don't track like a normal baby.
So, okay, let's
Yeah.
just wind this back a bit, because I mean it's very hard to see this. I mean it's 2 beautiful boys' lives destroyed.
Yep.
They're nearly 3 years old.
They are.
Do they? I mean, they've just been sitting, staring. Is this what their life is like? What can they do? I mean, I'm sorry to be so blunt, but I'm just trying to understand. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
This is it. This is it. You know, when they were like 6 months old, they could suck their thumb. You know, I have videos where they were a lot more normal than this. Now they've kind of regressed into a vegetative state, and this is as much as they can do. They can't hold their head up. They're 2-year-old, 2-month-olds. You know, they're frozen in time. Those shots froze them in time. They're stuck as a 2-month-old. And we're going to, well, hopefully, God willing, we're in the process of filing in the Vaccine Injury Compensation Court. And the experts that we have on our case, really believe that in the absence of vaccines, they would be fine.
Oh yeah. So you look after them. It's 24/7
Yep.
job.
I had to quit my job.
Quit your job.
So this all happened right when I was all the seizures started right as I was going back to work from maternity leave, right at the 3-month mark. I tried to go back to work. We tried to get a nanny. It was a nightmare.
So hard to trust people.
Yes.
With 2 children so vulnerable in this day and age.
Right. So, and we didn't know what was going on, right? Because we were still being told, oh, it might be reflux.
No. What do you do? What's your line of work?
Pilot.
You're in the military?
No.
No, pilot. How do you feel about this whole deception that we've all lived? And it took for us to have our children injured in different ways. You've seen the outside of the bus.
Yeah.
The constant lies, the medical professionals, the constant people like you now shouting out to warn the people, and you're now going to be called the anti-vaxxers, even though you vaccinated all your kids.
Yeah.
So now that your eyes are open, what is going through your head of what they've done to your boys?
I'm so mad, so when we finally opened our eyes, I reached out to our pediatrician and I said, you need to file a VAERS report. They were injured by a vaccine. This is the vaccine. She kicked us out. And she had been our children's pediatrician, all of our children. Because they were born in COVID, she was the only visitor we had in the hospital because she came. And that was hard. That really revved my fire and my anger. Is just how do you kick a family when they're down? How do you abandon a family when they need help?
Do Charlie and Ralph react to you? They can hear you, right?
Oh yeah, they understand everything. We'll tell them to lift their legs. It's more so in the water that they're a little more able to move their body more freely. So we'll tell them to move their legs or lift their arms or splash their hand, and they will. they know.
And they know when we're around and their brother and sister are around.
And each other. They're so connected. They're always holding hands.
And the older siblings?
Yes, so our oldest son is 7.
That's hard on them.
And our daughter is 5.
But they're really good with them.
Of course. I mean, they're adorable. So Charlie and Rolf, if this is Children's Health Defence speaking here, we are going to fight to stop this. What happened to you is not okay. It's not okay. And it's
happening every single day.
It's not okay.
You know, we were told that it's some rare genetic disease, but it's not. If you look at the inserts and compare it to what they're saying it is, it's all the side effects of the vaccines.
It's just so awful.
Yeah.
Well, beautiful boys.
And we're trying everything we can to reverse the damage, but we've been trying since they were 9 months old.
Can they sit up on their own? No. Wow.
They're slowly coming back.
Ralph is a little stronger than
starting to
Charlie.
hold his head up a little bit.
But it's, they have good days, but they're very few and far between. I think Charlie has had 1 seizure-free day in his entire, since his seizure started. It's, constant. And at their worst, they were having over 100 seizures a day. And through food, just food and lifestyle changes, because we tried meds, and the meds didn't work. They just made them worse.
No, meds.
So we weaned them off all meds at 9 months and put them on food. It's called the Bean Protocol, and we've been just trying to slowly and gently detox them. And we've seen some improvement. They're not having 100 seizures a day anymore. So that's improved
good,
our quality of life, which, at the end of the day, that's really all I can ask, is to just improve our quality of life, because it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. There's nothing worse than seeing your child sick, but then to see them seize over and over and over and over and over again, and both of them, it's not worth it. And then to hear that in the absence of seizures, it wouldn't be like this. Oh yeah, sorry. The absence of vaccines. Clearly tired.
Yeah, of course you're tired. They do all this genetic testing these days with when you're pregnant, take your blood, and they whiz it and tell you, oh, you're fine. When you were pregnant with the twins, it came back low risk.
Yep, low risk.
So they can take their genetic testing. They throw these things, anything but the vaccines.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds like huge medical negligence as well going on there to your poor boys.
Yeah. And there's not a whole lot. We don't get any help, so I had to quit my job. We don't get any help from the government. We're that family that falls through the crack because we make too much but not enough.
Well, if there's any viewers watching and you can offer any help in any way, any advice on how they can help these boys, please do contact us, because we want to help them so badly. Look at their beautiful faces.
And they're such fighters. They've come so far.
This is Charlie.
This is Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
Are you going to say hi?
Are you going to say hi?
Are you going to say hi?
And this is Ralph.
Say hi.
Just beautiful children. When's their 3rd birthday?
February 21st.
So February 21st, these beautiful boys are going to turn 3. And I can only hope, if nothing else, that parents are watching this who are about to go into hospital, have a baby, that you decline that Hep B. Please God, no baby needs a Hep B.
No.
Or anything, in fact.
No. Don't let your babies out of your sight.
What is it going to take for us to wake the people that we used to be up so that it doesn't take for us to have an injured child to get it? I don't know why we were so brainwashed. I have no idea. How are we going to stop this? How do we break this?
People like you guys.
And sharing our stories.
Being out and about.
That's it.
And,
We keep sharing.
You know, they have already made such an impact in our family and our friends. Just sharing our story with those people. And,
How do you feed them?
Orally. So we make all of their food, all organic.
They're really good eaters.
They are fed like kings.
So your life has completely changed
Oh,
since
yeah.
this happened.
Yeah.
We grow all of our own food. Well, not all of it, but we're trying. We have chickens and we've had to completely change every aspect of our life, but for the better.
Have you found a good lawyer to take this all the way?
Yes.
Good. Will you keep us updated, please?
Yes.
And anytime you want to come on Good Morning CHD or anything like that, please just keep us updated on these beautiful boys.
Thank you so much.
And if there's anything you need that we can do, please just tell us.
Thank you.
So Charlie and Ralph, onwards we fight. We're so sorry this happened to you boys, but you're beautiful. Love your Burt's Bees pajamas.
Organic cotton.
Organic cotton.
That matters too.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Is there anything else you want to tell people?
No, just
All right.
Do your research.
Thank you for
Thank you.
talking to us.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.